A very good afternoon from India to everybody who have logged into the third National Pulses Seminar hosted by India Pulses and Grains Association. Coming up now is the Desi Chana panel discussion, which will be moderated by Mr. Nirav Desai, Managing Partner, GGN Research. And with him are panelists, Mr. Sanjay Periwal, Managing Director, SP Meditors, Mr. Jayesh Patel, Group CEO and Executive Member, Bajrang International Group, Middle East, Dubai, and Mr. Peter Wilson, the evergreen Peter Wilson from Wilson International Trade, Australia. Before I hand over to Nirav, I would like to say a few things, a little bit about Nirav himself. I think most of us know him very well, but then for the benefit of people who probably have just heard about him, let me just add a few words. Nirav is the managing partner of GGN Research and managing director of Nickel Commodities and has over a decade of experience in pulses and oilseed sector. He's an expert in conducting market research studies and has a vast experience in future market of agriculture commodities. As an expert on Indian agro futures, Nirav is on the advisory board and product committee of both NCDX and MCX. He is also an executive committee member of the Solvent Extractors Association of India. Nirav has spoken at a number of national and international conferences and presented research papers on subjects like cost of agriculture commodities to an Indian farmer, Rabi and Kharif crop outlooks for various agri-commodities, including pulses and oilseeds. He is also a very, very regular speaker, given his expertise at leading news channels like CNBC Awaaz, Z Business, and UTV Bloomberg. So all in all, I think we're looking at an extremely exciting and panel discussion that's going to have a lot of information for all of us. So having said that, Nirav, over to you.
Sure, thank you.
So, who will tell you when to go live?
You can.
Okay, Niravji, go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you very much. So this Desi Chickpeas panel has a variety of speakers. So we have Mr. Jayesh Patel from Dubai, basically having a lot of knowledge on Africa and overall the other origins for Desi Chickpeas. We have got Mr. Wilson from Australia. We've got Sanjay Bhai Periwal from Bikaner, the heart of Rajasthan Chana producing state. I'm myself Nirav, and we are going to go step by step. So first, I will be presenting, giving an overall purview of how has the crop shaped up, how does it look. Then will be followed by Mr. Sanjay giving a idea on how the Rajasthan crop looks, and also how does the demand scenario look for India this year. Followed by Mr. Wilson giving an outlook on Canada and maybe the other origins. And then followed finally by Jayesh Bhai, who will give us an idea on how does Africa seem to supply for the Indian markets. So going to my presentation first. So basically, we see that there has been a major change in sowing trends in last 2 years in Desi chickpeas in India. Madhya Pradesh, which was the largest area, which was around 33 to 35 lakh hectares. Before I go on, 1 lakh means 100,000 for listeners from across the globe. So 1 lakh means 100,000. So the area of Madhya Pradesh, which was around 33 to 35 lakh hectares, has trimmed down to 25, 26 lakh hectares this year. Maharashtra, which used to be between 13 to 15 lakh hectares, has slowly scaled up to 24, 25 lakh hectares. Rajasthan, which was around 15, 16 lakh hectares, is around 20 lakh hectares. No major change, though our participants from Rajasthan have been saying that they tend to slightly disagree with the government numbers. They feel the area is slightly lower than the government estimate. Gujarat has seen a big jump, which was a very minor state which had about 2 lakh hectares roughly of area, has jumped up to 8 lakh hectares. So this is a big change that has happened from Madhya Pradesh, which was the major area, becoming a smaller area, Maharashtra coming up as a second largest state, and Gujarat really popping up from nowhere. So overall, if we look at the chana crop area, this year we see a 4% increase in chana crop area. So now going to the next slide. Monsoon performed well. The green area shows the normal monsoon. The blue area shows largely slightly excess monsoon. So all the chana growing area this year received a decent monsoon. Now going month-wise weather. See, basically this year the monsoon departure from Maharashtra was a little late. Till Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh and maybe slight parts of Gujarat, we had a timely departure of monsoon in September month. But in Maharashtra, we had rains up till mid of October. This did delay a little bit of sowing of chana, but this gave a welcome moisture, a good soil moisture for the planting. And this also brought in a little fallow land in Maharashtra, which was not expected to be taken in the Rabi season, because what typically happens in India is the Kharif area is always higher than the Rabi area, especially in the northwest of India, because still a lot of crop depends on natural rainfall. And for Rabi, they have to rely on the irrigation. And not every farm has a proper irrigation facility. So whenever there are late rains, we see that state has a little jump in area in crops like chana or mustard, because they require lesser rain, and initial soil moisture helps them reduce the later irrigation. So Maharashtra saw this clearly. November was majorly a clear weather and the crop development was good. December, we saw some cyclonic rains coming in, a little bit of here and there in North Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. But Rajasthan had been dry in November and December. All the rains that occurred were majorly in central India. January again, we had some rains, but we missed the major part of Rajasthan. Little bit of Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra had the rains. The winters were also, I would say, cool. Coming to the temperature analysis, so we did see a normal winter, not an extreme winter. Though it was La Nina, we were expecting that this could be much colder than the normal years. So, but what we saw is that the temperatures did go down a little bit. Say if you see Indore low temperature, it touched around 6 degree or 8 degree temperature, but will be followed by a spike in weather in the next 3-4 days. So there used to be cooler days or cooler nights, say for 2-3 days, immediately followed by a warmer pattern of weather, which did not affect the crop much. So this was Madhya Pradesh. The red line is the high temperatures in the day, maximum temperature, and minimum temperature is the blue line, which generally happens in the night or the early mornings. Going to Maharashtra and Rajasthan, Maharashtra was completely normal rainfall and weather. Rajasthan did see a little bit of temperature going down to 5 degree in Bikaner or below 5 degree in Sri Ganganagar. But as I told you, again, the weather, the temperature after 3-4 days would shoot up and go up to 10 degrees or something. So this overall did not give a frost attack or that largely in the crop areas. Neither did we hear a lot of hailstorm this year. But a small weather pattern that's developing just now from the February first week is we are seeing warmer day temperatures. The temperatures in the day are higher than generally they used to be. If we talk about the capital city of India, Delhi, it has touched one of the highest day temperatures in the first or second week of February in last 10-12 years. So this could be affecting the last minute pot filling stage in North MP and Rajasthan. Also speeding up the harvest or maturing now. We've conducted a quick survey in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra for 10-12 districts. So just giving you pictures and a preview of that. So we did Washim, Buldhana and Yavatmal district. Crop has prospered well without any major concern. These are some crop pictures. Most of the crop is in maturing and harvesting stage. As of now, yields seem to be average to slightly above average here. In Akola and Amravati, 60% of the crop has gone through early maturation. Remaining 40% crop is in average condition. Quality so far observed from early harvest is just fine. I would say not very good, not very bad, just average. Maybe you can consider it a slightly below average also. Coming to Madhya Pradesh, Ujjain, Ratlam, Dhar, Indore, Devas, the Malwa area, acreage has decreased from last year, majorly shifted to wheat and other local crops. This year, MP had good rains and we see a jump in wheat here. Crop has prospered with no major concern. Yields are slightly, in these districts are average, but the next district like we go are slightly below average. So Agar, Rajgarh, Shujalpur, this area did see a little of lower yields. We saw some areas having a shorter crop like this because of some crop root issues. Overall, a below average yield here. Overall, Madhya Pradesh seems to be average to slightly below average yield this year. Just to give you a preview, because we'll be discussing some import numbers. So 2019, January to December, we had 122,000 tons of import of chana. January to November 2020 is 91. And from trade sources, I've heard the December import is should be around 2025. So maintaining 100 to 125,000 tons of import of chana, which is majorly coming from Africa and Russia. Still, we are away from Australia. So giving a purview of all India basis, the area as we discussed has been up. The major increase has come from Maharashtra and Gujarat. Madhya Pradesh has shown a decrease. Just to give you the MSP, this year the MSP is rupees 5,100 per quintal versus last year 4,875 per quintal. The current market prices are at least 400 to 600 rupees below the MSP. So we'll have to see how does that go. And in Maharashtra, chana area increased due to crop rotation, insufficient water for wheat, and the last minute rains that I said. Gujarat, we are seeing that the area has increased, whereas also the yield reports are coming very good. The people from Gujarat claim that Gujarat might have the highest yield in all India basis this year. In Rajasthan area, I think the chana crop area is slightly lower. That's what the market expectation is. Also on the yield side, the inclination is lower yield. So we have Sanjay Bhai, who's I've heard also done a little quick survey in his surrounding areas. So I'll leave that topic for him. But as far as Rajasthan is concerned, we have got one more month for the harvest to pick up, which is mid of March. So Rajasthan could be the the game changer this year. So overall, if we look at Madhya Pradesh, we are slightly below average in yield, and because of the lower area, we are lower than last year. In Maharashtra, we have a higher area and slightly above average. So Maharashtra will have better crop prospects this year than last year. Rajasthan yields are slightly below average. Areas expected to be little lower. So we are expecting the crop to be lower than last year. For Gujarat, the yields are above average. Area is quite up. So a bigger jump is expected there from last year. So overall basis, the area increase in Maharashtra and Gujarat, but that has been compensated by lower area in Maharashtra, lower area in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. We feel the crop is going to be same as last year. As far as the demand side is concerned, we have to see how does the COVID, how had the COVID affected last year in demand, and how does it shape up this year? How does the demand recoup this year? Thank you with this, and that's the end of my presentation. Now, I would like Mr. Sanjay Periwal to talk on his thing. So I'll just briefly introduce Sanjay Bhai. Sanjay Bhai is the Managing Director of SP Meditors, has over about 24 years of experience in trading in commodities like chana, guar seed, guar gum and oil seeds. In short, मैं इनको मास्टर ऑफ बीकानेर बेल्ट कहूँगा. और संजय भाई का बहुत ही ज़्यादा वास्ट एक्सपीरियंस है ब्रोकिंग बिजनेस में. साथ ही में आज हर एक व्यापारी का एक आकलन के तरफ, क्रॉप के तरफ का एक आइडिया नहीं रहता है, इनका हमेशा ध्यान रहता है कि कैसा क्रॉप चल रहा है। साथ ही में एनसीडीएक्स के ऊपर भी डिलीवरी बेस्ड और ये सब व्यापार पे भी काफी ध्यान रहता है, तो ही इज अ वेरी गुड मैच ऑफ फ्यूचर्स एंड फिजिकल एज वेल। सो ओवर टू यू संजय भाई।
भाई को धन्यवाद देता हूँ कि आपने मेरे को इस कार्यक्रम का हिस्सा बनाया है। राजस्थान की क्रॉप के बारे में आपने मेरे ऊपर थोड़ा दायित्व सौंपा है, तो राजस्थान की क्रॉप के बारे में मैं थोड़ा सा इसको 2-3 भागों में बांटना चाहता हूँ। राजस्थान में नॉर्थ वेस्ट राजस्थान एक हिस्सा हुआ, ईस्ट राजस्थान एक हिस्सा हुआ। बेसिकली राजस्थान के अंदर 70% बिजाई बिरानी बिजान होता है, जो भगवान की बारिश के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है। 30% इरिगेशन, जहां नहर या फिर कुएं की सिंचाई से बिजान होता है। पश्चिमी राजस्थान को जहां तक अपने समझें, जैसे बीकानेर, गंगानगर, हनुमानगढ़, जैसलमेर, जोधपुर, नागौर और पाली, ये डिस्ट्रिक्ट जो है लगभग 75% चने का बीजान इस एरिया के अंदर होता है राजस्थान में। जहां पे फसल की हालात इस समय अच्छी नहीं है, उसका कारण है पिछले साल बरसात मानसून के टाइम में मॉइस्चर बहुत अच्छा मिला था 19 में, और उसके बाद उनको मावठ और बरसात दो मिल गई थी फसल को, तो फसल की ईल्ड अच्छी बैठी थी। इस बार मानसून के टाइम में भी बारिश की बेहद कमी रही उत्तरी पश्चिमी राजस्थान में, और मावठ एक भी नहीं मिली। नवंबर, दिसंबर, जनवरी अप टू फरवरी आज तक भी कोई बारिश इन इलाकों में हुई नहीं है। तो ग्रोथ जो क्रॉप की मैं जहां तक देख के आया हूं, क्रॉप की ग्रोथ बेहद कमजोर है इस टाइम। तो ईल्ड अभी और 15 दिन है, अगर कोई बारिश आने की संभावना बनती है तो कुछ सुधर सकती है, अदरवाइज यहाँ ईल्ड बहुत ज्यादा कम होने वाली है। और बिजाई का जो आंकड़ा है वो लगभग इन एरियो में पिछले साल से 10% कम रहा है, क्योंकि लोगों का रुझान मस्टर्ड के भाव की वजह से मस्टर्ड और मेथी के ऊपर भी रहा है, और इसबगुल के भी भाव अच्छे थे, इसबगुल के ऊपर भी रहा है। जो जिले राजस्थान में अच्छी क्रॉप में आ रहे हैं, जिनमें पिछले साल कोटा, बारा, बूंदी, अजमेर, भीलवाड़ा, जहाँ पे क्रॉप 12 से 13 कुंटल, 14 कुंटल, 15 कुंटल तक पर हेक्टेयर गई थी, वहां भी मॉइस्चर कंटेंट इस साल कम था, और पानी वहां एक रेन मिली सिर्फ। दिसंबर के महीने में एक बरसात मिली, वो भी बहुत कटपीस बरसात थी, कहीं नहीं थी। तो क्रॉप अल्टीमेटली वहां भी कमजोर है। तो मेरा तो ऐसा मानना है कि राजस्थान की फसल जब आएगी तो चने का सिनेरियो कुछ और होगा। चने के अंदर राजस्थान में काफी कमजोरी देखी जा रही है। ईल्ड के मामले में भी, सोइंग में भी कमी आई 10% की, और ईल्ड के मामले में भी 25% तक की कमी आ सकती है।
संजय भाई कुछ डिमांड के बारे में बताएंगे, अगर आप, लास्ट ईयर कैसी डिमांड रही, इस साल आपको कैसी लगती है? आप
कोरोना की वजह से डिमांड का कुछ सिस्टम बदला, लेकिन कोरोना में डिमांड बहुत अच्छी थी। नीरव भाई, एक कहावत थी किसी समय अपने देश में, दाल रोटी खाओ प्रभु के गुण गाओ। कोरोना ने वो सारा सीन चेंज कर दिया। कहा दाल रोटी खाओ और घर वाली ने कहा काम पे जाओ। तो दाल के प्रति लोगों का जो रुझान जो पिछले साल देखने को मिला, ये अलग बात है कि PMKYG या गवर्नमेंट की अन्य स्कीमों में खपत ज्यादा दिखी, तो उसका थोड़ा चेंज हो गया, ट्रेड का स्टाइल चेंज हुआ। लेकिन खपत मेरे हिसाब से कोरोना काल में बढ़ी है, और 5 से 10% मेरे को इस साल खपत और बढ़ती लगती है। और ऐसा लगता है कि देश में जो पूरा प्रोडक्शन होगा, जहां महाराष्ट्र की भी बात की जाती है, कुछ लोगों से, हालांकि मेरा वो इश्यू नहीं है, लेकिन कुछ लोगों से बात होती है जो पहले 10 से 12 पर हेक्टेयर कुंटल बताते थे, वो 8 से 10 बताना उन्होंने शुरू किया है। अगर महाराष्ट्र का कोई भी प्रोडक्शन ड्रॉप होता है तो कहीं ऐसा नहीं हो कि अंत में जाके फिर कोई इंपोर्ट का रास्ता, कोटा का सिस्टम चने के लिए खोलना पड़े और अपने को इंपोर्ट करना पड़े, क्योंकि दलहन की फसल बहुत अनसर्टेनिटी है। 2-3 सालों से देखा जा रहा है कि दलहन की फसल बराबर उतर नहीं पा रही है। फसल बहुत अच्छी दिखती है, लेकिन इल्ड के टाइम में वो सभी में कमजोरी आती है। उड़द आई, तुअर आई, मूंग आया। अप टू मूंग राजस्थान में ऐतिहासिक फसल थी, लेकिन जब क्रॉप आई, बोरियों में गई, तो क्रॉप आधी हो गई। तो कुछ मौसम में ऐसा क्लाइमेट कुछ ऐसा चेंज है जिसकी वजह से ये प्रॉब्लम आ रही है। राजस्थान के चने के बारे में मैं एक और बात कहना चाहूंगा आपको, पश्चिमी राजस्थान के चने के बारे में। आपको तो पता ही है, आपने तो काम यही है, देखा ही है। हिंदुस्तान में नहीं, बल्कि मैं धरती पे ही कहूंगा, पूरे विश्व में राजस्थान, वेस्टर्न राजस्थान के चने का जो स्वाद है, जो उसका फाइबर है, जो उसका मॉइस्चर कंटेन है, जो उसकी स्टोरेज है, वो हिस्टोरिकल है। और भारत सरकार ने जो एमएसपी बढ़ाई है, उससे प्रोडक्शन किसान ने जरूर बढ़ाना शुरू किया है, लेकिन भगवान ने उस हिसाब से यील्ड दी नहीं है अभी तक। तो एमएसपी और बाजार भाव में कई बार गैप देखा गया है। सरकार ने बहुत कुछ किया है, नेफेड ने भी बहुत बड़ा प्रिक्योरमेंट करके कोरोना काल में उसको आगे भेजा है, लोगों के थाली तक पहुंचाया है। लेकिन अभी एक आईपीजी से मैं दरखास्त करूंगा कि जो अभी इनकी जो सेलिंग होती है, मार्केट, ओपन मार्केट में सेलिंग होती है, जब उसके ऊपर भी कोई न कोई बातचीत आईपीजी के द्वारा होनी चाहिए कि उसकी भी रेट, जैसे एमएसपी फिक्स हो तो उसकी भी एक मिनिमम रेट फिक्स होनी चाहिए, ताकि कोई भी ट्रेडर या मिलर वहां सेफ रह सके। बहुत सारी अनसर्टेनिटी बनी रहती है कि चना किस भाव में बिक जाएगा, किस भाव में मिल जाएगा। प्रोडक्शन, डिमांड, स्टॉक उतना न होते हुए भी टाइमिंग पे कई बार ये काम इफेक्ट करता है। और चने का वैसे मेरे को फ्यूचर बहुत अच्छा दिखता है। राजस्थान में जब भी चना कमजोर होता है तो चने का फ्यूचर बहुत अच्छा होता है। विगत कई सालों से आप कभी भी उठा के देखोगे, राजस्थान का चना ही अंत में जाके बाजार में भारी पड़ता है, क्योंकि महाराष्ट्र का चना शुरू में सारा खपत में चला जाता है। एमपी की आपने जैसे बताई है, क्रॉप कम है, गवर्नमेंट का प्रिक्योरमेंट अच्छा रहने वाला है, दूसरी दलहनें है नहीं, पीडीएस में सरकार लगातार माल दे रही है, दूसरी स्कीमों में भी दे रही है और देती रहने का संभावना है। तो फ्यूचर चने का मेरे को बहुत अच्छा लगता है।
एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन आपसे कि ये एमएसपी पे लास्ट ईयर सरकार की खरीद कैसी रही और इस साल आपकी कैसी एक्सपेक्टेशन लगती है, क्योंकि डिफरेंस काफी है एमएसपी वर्सेस करंट मार्केट प्राइस का।
नहीं, गवर्नमेंट को, मेरे को तो लगता नहीं है गवर्नमेंट का जो टारगेट है वो गवर्नमेंट को इस साल माल भी मिल पाएगा 5100 में भी। मेरे को नहीं लगता है कि अभी तक, जहां तक मेरा अनुभव है, 25 लाख टन का लगभग स्टेटों को कोटा दिया है। मेरे को नहीं लगता है 25 लाख टन माल सरकार के पास जा पाएगा। अगर किसान का माल एमएसपी से 400-300 रुपए नीचे बिकता है, 46, 47, 45, तो वो मार्केट में ही बेच देता है। वो एमएसपी पे जाके अपना रजिस्ट्रेशन कराना, अभी उसको देना कन्वीनियंट नहीं महसूस होता है। तो लगता नहीं है कि गवर्नमेंट अपना टारगेट पूरा कर पाएगी। हालांकि पिछले साल राजस्थान में 6.5 लाख टन माल सरकार ने खरीदा था।
धन्यवाद संजय भैया. Now I'd like to move to Mr. Peter Wilson. Mr. Peter is the managing director of Wilson International, and his business focuses on providing superior services to global agri-businesses. Peter has held board, C-suite, and senior trading positions for listed and private international trading and logistic companies in Australia and Canada. Mr. Wilson is immediate past chair and board member of Pulse Australia Limited. He also sits on the Global Pulses Conference, GPC's executive committee. Mr. Wilson holds a postgraduate qualification in agribusiness from Monash University and has lectured in agribusiness and risk management subjects at the University of Queensland. Peter maintains a keen interest in his family farming business on the Darling Downs in southern Queensland. Peter, just to help you, because you would not have listened to the translation, Mr. Periwal was talking about Rajasthan's production, and he does not see the monsoon performance in Rajasthan being very good in Western Rajasthan, which is the main chana growing area. Neither does he see in the Rabi period, when the chana sowing happens, there used to be winter rains. We don't see winter rains there. He is seeing lower area than the government numbers. He's seeing lower yields. So he's not very optimistic on the Rajasthan chana production. And the last comment he made was that the Rajasthan chana always makes the game change for Indian supply and demand. Over to you, Mr. Peter, please.
Thanks, Nirav, and namaste, namaskar to everybody in India and everybody who's tuned in all around the world on this very important, in my mind, the Desi chickpea is the king of food pulses globally, and I've been honoured to be involved with trading this particular commodity for over 30 years. It's certainly a great product with a multitude of uses, both places like Australia, but of course in other parts of the world, and how the Desi chickpea is used, I think, is absolutely incredible. And I guess in that 30-year period, we've seen Australian farmers embrace Desi chickpea production. In 2016, we maxed our production to be in excess of 2.2 million tonnes. And so the Australian farmer likes Desi chickpeas. It works very, very well in the northern part of our cropping zone as a rotational crop. So if we talk about sustainability, the Australian farmer is using Desi chickpeas and broadly pulses as part of their sustainable farming rotation. So if I just, if I can somehow share my screen here, let's see if the technology actually works. There we go. That didn't work, did it? Okay, so you should be able to see now the presentation. Just from an orientation perspective, just clarify, Nirav, you can see that? Right. So the orientation slide, clearly you have Australia, very, very large island. You can see in the northeastern portion, we have the best beaches in the world, in that part of the world. And just below that, in what I call the northern cropping zone, we produce, I think, some of the best Desi chickpeas in the world. The Australian crop is seeded into profile moisture, not unlike the situation in the Indian subcontinent. So we do require moisture leading up to seeding to ensure that Desi chickpea, which has a beautiful long taproot, can access the moisture below the surface. And that largely is a phenomena in Northern Australia, where we have deeper soils and traditionally heavy summer rainfalls. That has been a bit short in recent years. We've been subject to significant drought in much of the northern cropping zone. And you'll see in the next slide, it has basically delivered some patchy production because of the lack of moisture. Essentially, if a farmer in Australia doesn't have a significant moisture profile, then they don't seed Desi chickpeas. So for the most part, the poor outputs from sort of 18 and 19, or 18, 19 and 19, 20, were as a result of poor seeded area, as a result of poor moisture, and then of course follow up on very, very poor yields compared to normal. You can see 16, 17 I've included in there, where we absolutely shot the lights out in terms of everything going well. And we had very, very large area followed up by exceptional yields. 2021, we had modest area sown, but our yields were quite reasonable. Many people call the crop between 800 and 900,000 tonnes. On the surface with India out, and I know we haven't covered yet Indian policy. But to be honest, from my perspective, when people ask me about whether India will change its local policy with regards to import duties and quotas and etc., I'm of the view that we won't see change until we have a new government. And so I'm not sweating on India being a part of an import destination for Australian Desi chickpeas for at least the next couple of years. And in fact, they'll be an export competitor. And I think they will help to keep the market a little bit flat. We've seen a significant rally here over certainly since harvest. And we're up around that $650 US, started off around $450. So we've rallied this market a couple of $100. And I expect where India can export to, we will see them probably participate if the crop is similar to last year. Now, we are seeing significant demand. Obviously, Pakistan has been a major presence for Australian exporters here in recent months. They've obviously got some cropping outcomes concerns, and we probably see some significant opportunities. Now, there are people that think that we could see Pakistan move to as high as 450,000 tonnes, which is what they achieved in 16-17. But of course, we also know that Pakistan has been as low as 40-odd thousand tonnes in 12-13. So I'm not sure. I mean, year to date, we've had about 70,000 tonnes October, November, December go to Pakistan. In the same period where we achieved 450,000 tonnes of exports to Pakistan, in the same October, November, December period, we'd already shipped 160,000. So the supply chain has got to do an enormous amount of work for us to hit 450,000 tonnes, and containers have been very, very difficult here. So whether we do see Pakistan take some bulk conventional, I guess, is something that maybe others can comment upon. We would see Bangladesh as relatively stable. If I go to the next slide, we see Bangladesh has been a relatively stable player for Australian Desi chickpeas. They like the Australian Desi chickpea. The big, bold, light-coloured Desi chickpea is a feature for a Bangladeshi importer. So we think that whilst notwithstanding Bangladesh has been buying some Indian product, they've been very stable around that 200,000 tonnes. So you can see India is the big elephant in the room, and without them as an export destination, it is we can have very, very burdensome supply quite easily because we've taken them out of the equation. Pakistan we've spoken about. The UAE seems reasonably stable in around that 50 to 70,000 tonnes. I've left Iran in there because I think Iran probably plays. And if I pick up some of the new president of the United States has reached out to talk directly to the Chinese leadership in trying to, improve relations. I suspect we'll see some move between the US and Iran as well. This is my view, and it's quite possible that we see Iran pop up as a genuine international importer of Australian Desi chickpeas. And previously they had purchased up to 30-odd thousand tonnes directly. We know that there's porous borders, and we do see Desi chickpeas go from Pakistan and historically the UAE into Iran. So Iran, I think, is a bit of a sleeper for us as Australia. So generally speaking, we've got a reasonably good export destination structure, and that bodes very well for Australia maintaining its strong commitment to producing Desi chickpeas. As I said earlier, Australian farmers know how to grow them, and they know how to store them. There's no great pressure today on the market. The farmer is comfortably able to store product. He or she are able to keep it in very good hygienic conditions and keep it from oxidization, so we don't have the situation where the chickpea goes dark quickly in the way that they store them. And financially, Australian farmers are comfortable with the various mechanisms of financing that storage. So, I don't really expect major bearish impacts whilst ever Pakistan continues to be active here. but one would think that we're probably at the top end of the range based on the supply and demand at the moment at $640 or $50. That seems to be a little bit toppy at the moment. Just quickly, in going forward, it's all going to be about weather, Nirav. It's all going to be about weather. We can see that rainfall over the last 12 months has been reasonably good, and much of the rain in the top eastern half of the continent has been in the last couple of months. So we've started to repair the weather balance sheet in Australia a little bit, but we still have some way to go. If you have a look at the right-hand slide, you're able to see that we are still we're still not great in the northeastern component of the continent. We are still below average, and we do need some significant rainfall here over the next 6 to 8 weeks to assure a very good area sown for Desi chickpeas. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. You are done, right, Mr. Wilson? Your presentation is over, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. And now going to the fourth speaker, Mr. Jayesh Patel. He is the Group CEO and Executive Member for Bajrang International Group, the big group. A Tanzanian based in Dubai, Mr. Patel joined ETG in 1992, Director of Malawi subsidiary with responsibility for overall management and control of company affairs in the country. He had served as the Group COO of ETG Group between 2005 and 15. He was the driving force behind identifying new business opportunities and expanding ETG footprints in many African countries and in other parts of the world, such as Intra-Africa, Australia, Canada, China, India, Myanmar, Russia, etc. Mr. Patel developed and transformed pulses and sesame seed vertical into among largest ETG product vertical. Mr. Patel is one of the most sought after speakers in global pulses and sesame conferences such as CECIL, IPGA, Indian Oilseeds, IOPA, I mean to say, Ethiopian body IPOSPA. Over to you, Mr. Jayesh Patel. Thank you. You're not audible, sir.
You hear me now?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just go straight to the presentation. All right, so my presentation, I'll just touch base little bit to the global pulses. Then after the Indian imports of Desi and chickpeas out of Africa, then bit of on Sudan chickpeas, Tanzania chickpeas, Ethiopia chickpeas, obviously the African pulses in general, and then obviously the last one will be the impact on the African pulses post-government policy changes. So the first one I would look at the global pulses, although it is not directly relevant to the panel what we talk about, but as Dr. Singh also mentioned, the global production of pulses is around 92 million tons with the CAGR about 2.6. Noticeable, although the people do not talk much about Africa, but Africa has the pulses production about 20 to 22 million tons, largely used for the domestic consumptions. We do export about 1.5 million tons out of Africa as such. Indian production, in fact, last few years, it has gone up considerably up. Now that it is 23 to 24 million tons. I think they are also targeting about 30 million tons by 2030. Most relevant part about the international export, which is quite a significant, it's about 10% of the global production. It means the country producing is not consuming, which creates an opportunity for the people and the industries to export the product as such. Another important factors directly keeping in the Indian consumption is in mind. The Indian consumption was about 35 grams per capita in 2007, which has gone up about 43. And as Dr. Singh said, is about 47 now. And I think the available pulse is what we have it in India. It is close to 52.9. So they are very quite close to the WHO recommended about 80 gram per capita. Well, obviously, when you talk about the USA and Europe, which is, I think, quite behind. Also, the world average consumption about the per capita is 70, and India has a pulse is close to about 52.9. This is on a quite a relevant subject when it talked about the desi chickpeas from Africa. We do not export much out of Africa, but there is an export about close to 300,000 tons among the three countries. So in 2019, I'm just taking the fiscal year of the India, we had an export about 251,000 tons of Kabuli chickpeas and the 117,000 of desi chickpeas. These numbers are from the Indian Custom and Excise. Certainly, into this year, we have also seen quite a huge export out of Africa, and that is about the Kabul is about 60,000 tons. This is up to as of November, which has already entered into the Indian soil, but we see this number is close to 100,000 tons in the fiscal year of the 2020. Desi chickpeas, Tanzania alone has exported around 99, about 100,000 tons, although the all imports to India was already about 80,000 tons by the end of November. So Kabuli chickpeas is largely imported from the Russia and Sudan. This is largely imported from Tanzania and small quantity from the Australia and Ethiopia. Coming back to the Sudan, basically the showing is around November, December they do so the thing. Harvest is around the March and April. Production is about 140 to 150,000 tons. Local consumption is around 20 to 25,000 tons. Export about 80 to 100,000 tons. Cross-border trade is around 15 to 20,000 tons. Main growing area is Jajira, Vedmadni, Al-Kamlin, the Hasaisa, Abu Osar. These are the area where they mainly grow the things. For the people information, the consumer point of view, the Sudan produces the FAQ variety of the chickpeas, largely used for the milling purpose, ideal for the basin and the chana flour. Tanzania chickpeas, the showing time is generally March and April. Harvest is around June, July. Production is around 140 to 160,000. Domestic consumption is around 10 to 15,000. Export is about 100 to 120,000 tons. Cross-border trade largely ends up in Nairobi or the Mombasa, which is around 50 to 20,000 tons. Main growing area is Shinyanga, Manza, Arusha, Dodoma, and Kahama, which is generally in the lake zone. The Tanzania do produce this thing. Tanzania chickpeas has a major advantage being a part of Tanzania being a part of LDC nation. The large portion of the Tanzania chickpeas now lands up in India only. It is also a preferred variety for the roasted chickpeas. Earlier, Tanzania chickpeas we used to export quite a lot to the Pakistan, GCC, Bangladesh, India. But last couple of years, we have seen the major export is to India. Ethiopian chickpeas, the showing is in September, October. Harvest is around now, which is happening in December, January. Production is about 300,000 tons. You can say even up to the 500,000 tons. They have a huge domestic consumption, about 230 to 250,000 tons. Their export is quite negligible, is around 40 to 50,000 tons. Cross-border trade is about 5 to 10,000 tons. Main growing area, Soha, Awas, Gondar, and this is the area that they produce. African pulses in general, Africa, they do not only produce the desi only, but we do produce the pigeon peas, green mung beans. Our total export is about 1 to 1.5 million tons. Just for the information of the audience, the pigeon peas that we export out of Malawi, Mozambique, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and Sudan is up to 500,000 tons. Chickpeas out of Sudan, Ethiopia, and Tanzania is about 300,000 tons, which is a combination of the desi and the Kabuli chickpeas. Green gram we export out of Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and Ethiopia, which is about 100 to 150,000 tons. These are some few notes on a government change in policy. See, restriction imposed by the government of India on the pulses, especially the pigeon peas production, has been declined. That is in Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda, because they do not have any preferred arrangement with the government of India. While the Mozambique and Malawi, the production has gone up, and that has gone up mainly because of they do have a bilateral relationship between and special MOU with the government of India. So the pigeon-based production in the Malawi and Mozambique is now close to 200,000 tons, while the Tanzania, Kenya, which used to produce much bigger crop than the Mozambique, which has come down nothing. Similarly, the Tanzania and the Ethiopia and Sudan has benefited because of LDC. As Peter said, that he doesn't see the Australian chickpeas as any market for India until the new government comes up. But Africa has been fortunate that we do have an advantage of LDC, and I think the recent effort of IPGA and especially the Pradeep has made up the clarification, and we do have the LDC status, import free status in India, which allows us to export our products to the India as we speak now, the thing. So with this, I will end my presentations, and if you have any questions, do let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayesh bhai. If there are any questions from the audience, they are welcome in the chat box. In the meanwhile, I would be asking certain questions to the panel. Question to you, Mr. Peter. You are quite optimistic on the export this year from Australia from last year. Where is the major jump that you see this year?
I think we're anticipating a significant increase from movements from Australia to Pakistan. Pakistan seems like it's got a pretty good appetite right now. I may not be as optimistic as some, because I think there's still a lot of work to be done in logistics. And of course, you know, traditionally the Pakistan market is 5, 10, 15 containers. So that's a lot of transactions to get us to several 100,000 tons. But we know it has happened historically. It did happen, 16, 17. But, you know, so we've moved, I think, 70 or 80,000 tons until the end of December. And that's good. So I think if we can continue that pace right through, then there's enough demand coming to keep the supply chain lubricated, and I think to keep the prices at a reasonable level. But, you know, at the end of the day, we do have a reasonable crop. We do need to see that demand continue to come. Otherwise, without India, it could well be it could be the difference between a 250,000 ton carry out and a 350,000 ton carry out. And that would be a little burdensome.
Got you. Question to Mr. Jayesh bhai. Jayesh bhai, the whole of major countries that we spelt out, other than Tur, there are a lot of these countries that are benefiting from LDC status in chickpeas. So how do you see in coming years the area increasing, decreasing in all these countries which are exporting Desi chickpeas or Kabuli chickpeas to India?
Thank you, Nirav. I think to answer your question, we need to understand the why in Africa that we produce the pulses. Pulses is a secondary crop for us. It's not a primary crop like the country like Canada, Australia, or India as such. The thing. We use this crop under the cross plantation to improve the soil fertility as such. The thing. So mainly when we grow these pulses, it's been after growing the major crop, which has been used for the staple food, like the maize, sorghum, or whatever the things that we require. And at the end of the monsoon, we do plant the pulses as such. Secondly, the pulses in Africa is mainly produced by the smallholders. We do not have a commercial farming in Africa except the South Africa. So all these areas in Africa, what you see, it's like a sort of a garden sort of farming, which has been done in a couple of acre land, which has been done largely by large. It's been done on a manually. We are not even reached to a level of bullock as such. I mean, we still do a manual. So forget about the advanced technology, what we talk about, having the harvesters or probably having the tractors. We are quite far compared to that one. So we see that there will not be a substantial increase when it comes to the overnight jump, like coming from 1.8 million tons to 2 million tons or 5 million tons. There will be gradual increase into the pulse production as such. The recent changes into the government policy, which has actually disturbed a lot as such. You know, the pulses, especially the chickpeas, green gram or the pigeon peas, it is not the part of the local diet of the local people as such. It is largely grown to export to the, and it was mainly to in India as such. The change in the policies in India, basically that has disturbed the entire system as such. So the pigeon peas production at times when the ban was imposed, the prices has fallen as low as the cattle feed price. And absolutely there was no buyer for that as such the thing. So by then the Desi has come up as a rescue to the farmer as such, and we had no trade restrictions, so we could continue to export the thing. So Tanzania, which used to produce around 30 to 40,000 tons of chickpeas, now it has reached to 100,000 tons, which used to produce around 140, 150,000 tons of pigeon peas, which has come down by the 80 to 90,000 tons. So there is a swap into the thing. Similar thing has happened in Malawi and Mozambique. Malawi, Mozambique, the pigeon peas production has gone up while the other pulses production has come down. So to answer your question in short, the thing that you do not see a much increase, either much decrease, but the farmers will change the plantations according to the demand and supply as such.
Got you. Thank you, Jayesh bhai. Now, question to Mr. Sanjay. There's a question from the audience. How much end stock for chickpeas in India? Traders plus NAFED. NAFED और ट्रेडरों को मिलाकर कितना स्टॉक इंडिया में होगा संजय भैया? आपका संजय जी, आपका अनम्यूट करिए.
एक हेलो.
हाँ जी, आपके हिसाब से
NAFED और
ट्रेडर के पास
NAFED और ऑल ओवर इंडिया का स्टॉक,
ऑल ओवर इंडिया का
लगभग मेरे हिसाब से 18 से 20 लाख टन का कैरी जाएगा.
18 से 20 लाख टन का. इसमें से नाफेड आपके पास कितना और ट्रेड के पास कितना?
नाफेड के पास लगभग इस टाइम में 10 से 10.5 लाख और बाकी 10 से 10.5 मार्केट में ऑल ओवर इंडिया में.
इतना बड़ा क्रॉप कैरी में जाएगा ट्रेडर के पास में?
ये नाफेड का स्टॉक तो ट्रेडर में गिन नहीं सकते हैं आपने.
नहीं, नाफेड तो ठीक है, पर ट्रेडर के पास इतना बड़ा स्टॉक है आपके हिसाब से?
नेफेड लगता है मेरे को 10 लाख टन माल इंडिया में अभी होना ही चाहिए, क्योंकि ये PMKYG में भी जो माल गया है उस माल में भी अभी सप्लाई पेंडिंग है. जो स्टेटों में जा रहा है उसमें भी सप्लाई पेंडिंग है. उनमें वो स्टॉक अपने इसमें ऐड करके ही चलते हैं. अल्टीमेटली वो कंज्यूम इंडिया में ही होना है, कहीं भी कोई खाए उसको. और ये 20 लाख टन 25 लाख टन मेरे को ऐसा लगता है सालाना ये स्टॉक कैरी होना ही है. इसको तो स्टॉक अब मानना ही नहीं है, ये कैरी होता ही चला जाएगा.
समझ गया.
ये इस साल से भी आगे साल जाने वाला है.
ओके, ठीक है, धन्यवाद. मिस्टर पीटर, देयर इज अ क्वेश्चन. हाउ मच इन्वेंटरी इज देयर इन ऑस्ट्रेलिया इन 2020-21? हाउ मच मोर एक्सपोर्टेड सो फार? दिस इज फ्रॉम द ऑडियंस. Mr. Peter?
So we carry out, and I've done a reasonable amount of work on reconciling our stocks. So 1920, we didn't carry out very much, 120, 150,000 tons, which in the scheme of Australian storage and the spread of production is negligible. So we opened this year with relatively small stocks. Right now, I'd be projecting that our end stocks would be, with our exports that I'm anticipating, somewhere around 250,000. So I would expect that ending stocks would actually grow, would double from last year's position. But this in 2021, we're not really seeing that being burdensome. We had available to us to trade 900,000 tons at harvest time, and we've seen the farmers be very, very disciplined. They're getting very good prices for cereals. We've seen new markets for barley. We've got very, very strong feeding markets here in Australia. So the farmer is getting good money for a whole range of crops. Canola is very, very well priced because of the world protein situation. So right now, I don't see that it's burdensome. There's plenty of stock available, but it doesn't appear to be burdensome at this point.
Thank you. Now to the audience, you can ask questions on email. The email ID is nps2021@ipga.co.in.